Hello, welcome to my channel. In the last episode, I picked up a new African violet at a local nursery. It caught my eye with a beautiful dark green, shiny foliage and dark purple blooms with frilled green edge. And today I will use it as an example to show you how I treat the new plants before introducing them to my collection. Bringing new plants home is always very exciting. Personally, I love visiting local nurseries and discovering the new shapes and colors of blooms and leaves. However, there are certain risks involved, including insects, powdery mildew, or any other harmful stuff that can travel on the new plant or in its soil when you bring it home. The insects of concern to African violet growers usually include thrips, mealybugs, aphids, spider mites, and others. Being mindful of those risks helps my new plants thrive and also protects my main collection. Here are 5 simple and easy steps that I follow. Step 1. Isolate. In order to avoid the risk of infestation of my existing plants, I isolated this plant as soon as I brought it home, and it is now growing in a separate room behind the closed door, and the room has adequate light throughout the day, so it's not light deprived. Step number 2. Remove all blooms. This is the hardest step for me because blooms is the first thing that catches my eye when I see the new plant. However, thrips are known to feed on the bloom's pollen in African violets, and to avoid the thrip infestation, the first thing to do is to remove the blooms together with the bloom stalks and all the unopened buds. Here is how I remove the blooms together with the bloom stalks. I find the middle part of the bloom stalk here and I lean it sidewise until I hear a snapping sound. And here is the entire bloom stalk with the bloom. These need to be discarded as soon as possible. Let's try it again to see if we can hear the oh wow, and we see the spider. I don't know if you see it crawling there, but here it is. Right there, and the spider web. So it is creating its little house inside of my new plant. So that's another good reason why it is important to isolate your plants. So let's get rid of the spider, and I'm gonna use little tweezers here to get it out. And I don't know if I caught it here or maybe it just crawled away. Okay, so I wasn't able to catch it. It just ran away and it is now hiding somewhere inside of the soil. So this is a great exercise to do so that we can avoid those spiders in the future. So let's again try and remove the bloom stalk right here, and I hope you heard the snapping sound. And there's 2 more that need to be removed. 1 and 2. Removing the blooms is also helpful because I will be repotting this plant into my own soil, and the plant will need to focus its energy on growing the new roots first. Step number 3, insecticidal soap treatment. On day 1, I treat the entire plant and the soil in which it came with this product. It is called Garden Safe Insecticidal Soap Insect Killer for organic gardening. The active ingredient in this product is potassium salts of fatty acids, 1% concentration, and it controls aphids, mealybugs, mites, leafhoppers, thrips, and other listed pests. In addition to this product, there is another helpful product by the same brand. It's called Garden Safe Fungicide 3-in-1, and it works as fungicide, insecticide, and miticide. However, thrips are not listed here in the insects list that it helps control. So I usually use it when I see signs of powdery mildew on the new plants, but normally I prefer using this one, insecticidal soap, because this one does help control thrips. And this plant doesn't have any signs of powdery mildew on it, so this product should work as the first treatment. And I will be spraying this plant once every 4 weeks, 4 times total. When applying the insecticidal soap, it is recommended to wear gloves and a mask to avoid contact with the spray contents. I usually spray it from a distance of about maybe 10 to 15 inches, and I shake the bottle first and then spray it also inside of the pot. This is a very full bottle, so it's a little heavy to spray, but basically make sure that also you spray it under the leaves, just like that. And once the entire plant is sprayed, we will put it back in isolation, and then we will come back to it 1 or 2 days later. And moving on to step number 4, repotting with systemic insect control. It is not always possible to tell if the new plant has insect infestation. Insects have several stages of life cycle, usually lasting for up to 30 days. And if there are no adult insects visible on the leaves, their eggs or larvae can be present in the soil. In order to break their life cycle, I repot new plants as soon as possible with the systemic insect control granules added to my potting mix. As a systemic preventative, I use this particular product in my potting mix. It's called Bonide Systemic Houseplant Insect Control, and I showed it in my potting mix recipe video. I will include a prompt to that video here in case you'd like to check it out. This particular product has a concentration of an active ingredient called imidacloprid at 0.22%, and it is recommended to add 2.5 tablespoons per gallon of potting mix of Bonide Systemic, and you can read the instructions here on the reverse label. So the containerized plant size 1 gallon, it's the first line here, and the amount of product needed is 2.5 tablespoons. Bonide Systemic provides for up to 8 weeks of insect control protection. There's also another product with the same active ingredient, imidacloprid. It is called Marathon 1% granular with higher concentration at 1%, and it provides for up to 10 to 12 weeks of insect control protection. So it lasts a little bit longer than the Bonide. But I've been using Bonide and it has been working well for me. It has been a couple of days since I sprayed this plant with the insecticidal soap. So right now we will be repotting it with the systemic granules. And I prepared the plastic pot of the same size as the original pot in which the plant came from the nursery, and I put the name and the date, and because it doesn't have a name, I put the no ID on there and the description of the blooms, purple with green edge. I prepared the week ahead of time, and I will be observing how the plant adjusts to the new potting mix and gradually introducing it to the wick. So first I will be watering it from top, and if the plant adjusts well, I will be then adding the wicking liquid into the reservoir to slowly transition it onto wick watering. Let's check the original potting mix, and we will squeeze on the plastic pot and try and release the plant. The potting mix looks good, so we will be just releasing as much of the potting mix as possible by gently removing it from the root ball. I don't see any presence of mealies or soil mealybugs, because when those are present, usually the potting mix has white webby formations or like spider web all throughout the potting mix, and in this case I don't see any of that, so that's good news. So the size of the root ball is important to determine the size of the pot in which we will be repotting this plant. So right now I can tell by looking at the size of the root ball that the size of this plastic pot might be a little bit too much. So I prepared a smaller pot, and it's a 3.5 inch plastic pot, and this is where we will be repotting this plant. So there is one small flower bud inside of the crown, and I will try and remove it. And here it is. Let's remove a couple of juvenile leaves from the bottom, because those will not grow any larger. They will remain small. I also save a couple of leaves to propagate in case the main plant doesn't do well. So I usually, after I remove those juvenile leaves, there are a couple of good leaves here that I see that I can propagate. Like this one, for example, looks good. So I'll put it down just in case as a backup. So I'll take this one Let's take a look at this one here. This one has some damage, so I'm just gonna discard off of it. And I think the last leaf here that I can take is here, this one. So now it's all ready to be potted up. I put some of the potting mix with the systemic on the bottom, and I will just slowly and gradually put the remaining potting mix on the bottom and around the roots of the plant. This way the bottom roots will be distributed evenly in and between the potting mix. And here, let me show you up close. Sometimes you get those sticks in the peat moss, and I get the Promix BX peat moss variety, so I just remove them because I don't want them to be on the way of the newly growing roots. I tap on the walls of the pot so that the potting mix falls through the roots and it doesn't form any large air pockets, because I want the potting mix to be evenly distributed between the roots. Alright, so a little bit more of the potting mix. The main point is not to bury the center of the crown, the center of the rosette, because then we might risk losing the new central leaves here. So the center of the rosette needs to be above the surface of the potting mix. Just a little bit of water, because the potting mix has been pre-moistened, so just a touch, and it is now ready to go back to its separate room. With leaves, I trimmed them and sprayed them with the insecticidal soap, the same variety that kills mites, mealybugs, aphids, and thrips. And I let the surface of the cut dry a little bit for a few minutes, and they are going into the 3-ounce plastic pots. And I will include a prompt to the leaf propagation tutorial video to learn more about how I plant my leaves. And this one had a little damage on the stem lower, so I just had to cut it to the healthy tissue all the way up, and it will be rooting in a separate plastic pot. So hopefully they will give me some extra babies in a couple of months. And let's water this one a little bit, and off it goes into a plastic bag. These are sandwich zippered sealed plastic bags. A week from now I will spray this plant again with the insecticidal soap, and then I'll be spraying it 2 more times, once a week, for a total of 4 times. And then the last step, but not the least, is to observe, and once again observe your new plant. I will be checking on it to make sure it's growing well and shows no signs of insects or disease. And if all goes well, 6 weeks from now, it will be joining my other plants. And I hope one day it will have a special feature in my monthly blooms video. I hope you found this video helpful.